Today, I'll talk about Bhutan. Is it the shape of things to come? Well, we'll see about that. Anyway, and nowadays it's become something of a rhetorical commonplace to say that we have entered a new geological era of sorts called the Anthropocene. Well, um, this is a matter of much scholarly debate because the Anthropocene is not yet recognized by geologists as a proper subdivision of geological time, and there is a lot of debate about when exactly it started. There's, for example, there's the Rediman hypothesis, which states that the Anthropocene began as early as the Neolithic Revolution. But that this hypothesis would render the Holocene, which is another geological era, immediately preceding the supposed Anthropocene. The Rediman hypothesis would render the Holocene obsolete, like superfluous, because it's all Anthropocene anyway. And this is a problem, of course, because the Holocene it has a certain group of climate characteristics, like it's in between the cycles of glaciation, which characterize the ice ages of the past few million years and so on. But anyway, despite not being precisely defined, despite some people not liking the name Anthropocene because of, I don't know, possible misanthropic connotations. The fact is that the Anthropocene it has become a staple of the environmental humanities, and it's, as a concept, I don't think it's going anywhere. As I said, there's this idea that, I mean, the Anthropocene it might have started like at the Neolithic Revolution, according to the early Anthropocene hypothesis. Some people date the Anthropocene to the early modern period with the so-called Orbis spike, following the European conquest of the Americas. But as a matter of fact, the Anthropocene started no later than the so-called Great Acceleration. What is the Great Acceleration? The Great Acceleration is a sudden technical leap which happened in the middle of the first half of the 20th century. There's this graph right here. It shows the evolution of population, GDP, water use, paper production, etc. And it's all going up. This is a direct consequence of the so-called Great Acceleration, which starts, as you can see, somewhere around the 1950s. And it's funny because the Great Acceleration it has this overall shape. Like the graph has an overall shape which goes really well with the meta narrative of everlasting growth and progress. It looks, I mean, of course it's anecdotal, but this graph looks a lot like that horrible graph which appears in the internet sometimes, like showing the technical gap left by the Middle Ages. and this is not a coincidence. These are images of thought that pertain to the same phenomenon. So yeah, this image of a cell phone, I chose it because it it has to do with technofossils. I mean, of course, it's like oh, look at me, I'm clever. But it has to do with actual debates regarding the Anthropocene, of course. But of course, not all places in the world pertain to this Anthropocenic paradigm. So one of these places is, of course, Bhutan, which is the subject matter of our presentation today. Bhutan is a very small country, landlocked in the middle of the Himalayas, next to India, China, Nepal, and so on. And culturally, it's very close to Tibet. The local language is called Dzongkha, which there will be lots of Dzongkha words in this presentation, all of which I will probably be absolutely butchering, together with some Sanskrit, of course. And Dzongkha is a Tibetic language, and Bhutan, it's very similar to the general. It has many characteristics which place it firmly within the Tibetan cultural area. Not only in terms of language, not only in terms of religion, which of course it's not exactly the official religion. We'll get to that, but the quote unquote official religion of Bhutan is Drukpa-inspired Buddhism, which is a form of Tibetan esoteric Buddhism, or Vajrayana. But also in terms of institutions. Of course, Bhutan has been a constitutional monarchy since 2008, but historically Bhutan, it had a sort of dual system in which there were secular and religious authorities, and the uninformed Western observant might call this system a theocracy, but it's not exactly reducible to Western analytic concepts, political concepts. So, what is so special about Bhutan? Bhutan, it's the only carbon negative country in the world. Is it though? I don't know. Perhaps Costa Rica is close behind, I think. But this is not about Costa Rica. It's about Bhutan. So Bhutan, it is the only carbon negative country in the world, and it has a very vibrant national park system, and most importantly, but something which ties all these things together, Bhutan, it doesn't use traditional economic parameters. It has given up on the idea of economic growth, GDP growth, actually, to be more specifically. It doesn't use GDP as an economic indicator. What does it use in the place of GDP, you might ask? It uses something called the Gross National Happiness Index. The concept of gross national happiness it's been floating around since at least, I don't know, the 70s, when a previous king of Bhutan has said that gross national happiness is more important than gross national product. It's like it's this famous feel-good speech he gave once to the international community, but it's something that actually stuck. And gross national happiness, it isn't something he suddenly made up at the moment. It's actually something which Bhutan takes very seriously, and it's not a new thing either. It's like this holistic approach to governance, which actually has its roots in once again in uh, Tibetan tradition of political thought. As early as at least the 18th century, there's this idea within Bhutan, but also in the general Tibetan region, that the that the telos of government, the function of the state and of the ruler, is to make the people happy, in a broadly speaking. So gross national happiness, it takes into account various factors which are external to the mere idea of economic growth for growth's sake. I mean, the ever rising line of GIP growth, as we saw here. So we can see here the multiple components of gross national happiness: psychological well-being, health, time use, education. A particularly important one is cultural diversity and resilience, and this ties back to what I was saying earlier about Drukpa-inspired not actually being the official religion of the Bhutanese state. They don't term it an official religion in their constitution. It's actually more of a national heritage sort of thing. Of course, the Buddhist paradigm permeates the Bhutanese politics and Bhutanese life in almost every dimension. But it's not what we would call, strictly speaking, a state religion. This is a possible criticism what one might choose to make about the Bhutanese system, that it's not a secular paradigm. It's they have a state religion and all that, but that's not exactly true. The Drukpa-inspired, it can be considered, apart from, of course, sort of heritage tradition, also sort of a state philosophy, something like that. It's the modus operandi of the Bhutanese state, similar to how Confucianism was important in China in the pre-republican era. Like Bhutanese Confucianism, it was the official state religion. Oh my God. Okay, so it's similar. It's similar to how Confucianism was conceived of in ancient China, and today in China they have Xi Jinping thought, which occupies a similar niche. So there are parallels of the Bhutanese system, this holistic approach, in Western environmental thought. For example, we have social ecology, which is an anarchist school of thought pioneered by Murray Bookchin. And he said, and Murray Bookchin famously said that all environmental issues are ultimately derived from social issues. And this ties back to the holistic approach of GNH, in which ecological diversity and resilience is tied to living standards, health, education, cultural diversity and resilience. They all go hand in hand. Of course, this is a similar holistic approach from a Western lens. And there's also the economic theory of so-called donut economics, in which there are two thresholds: the inner threshold of the social foundation, which corresponds to the social issues, and the outer threshold of the ecological ceiling, which is the peak capacity of the biosphere to sustain our civilization. And between these two thresholds, we have the safe and just space for humanity, as the author calls it. And well, this is very similar to the Buddhist concept of Madhyamaka. Well, I'm using Madhyamaka here, not in the sense of that Nagarjuna uses it, like the school of Madhyamaka, but in the sense of the middle way. It can be seen as sort of an Aristotelic sort of thing. As I said before, there's a vibrant national park system in Bhutan. Here's a little map of these national parks. And forests, they cover 80% of Bhutan's surface, which is actually more than what is mandated by the constitution, which is around 50%. Of course, of course, some people don't like this. Some people think that these forests would be more useful if they were chopped and shipped to places like Sweden, where they could become IKEA furniture or something like that. But the fact is that Bhutan is covered by 80% of native forest. There are in total 5 national parks, 4 wildlife sanctuaries, 1 nature reserve, and 9 biological corridors in Bhutan, which corresponds to at least like a little more than 50% of the country's surface. So this is a prime example of bioregional governance. Like
maybe could you wrap it up, please? In a few.
God.
Sorry. So that we have plenty of time for the Q&A and discussion. Thank you.
Okay, so well, I had a lot to say actually. Let me see. Okay, well, Bhutan, it takes a markedly non-modern, in the Notorious sense, approach to biocultural environmentalism. For example, in one of these national parks, it was the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary was established to preserve the Migoi, which is the Bhutanese version of the Yeti, and it doesn't really matter if the Migoi or the Yeti exists or not. What matters is the biocultural, social, environmental function of the belief these people have in the Yeti, which is what keeps the forests and Sakting wildlife sanctuaries intact.